Yo, what's good? All right, so today I did a couple things. First of all, I wrote down a bunch of new stuff for my promotional ideas, all the different facial expressions I'm going to do for the videos I'm going to make, and did some more work on the script for the longer form YouTube video, and then I did some brainstorming for the first boss fight. I think I have a good idea for how that can work. I think I'm just going to make him essentially like the regular enemies in that he just has a consistent, predictable pattern, but a little bit more complicated, and then make it so he's really hard to beat though. And I think that should do a good job of making it a really short and intense fight that takes you a while and several retries to learn, but maintains that feeling I wanted of it's still like one hit kill. And in theory, if you get good enough and once you figure out how the fight works, you can kill him in like 5 seconds or something like that, like super short traditional samurai fight style thing. So I'm thinking it's either going to work like that, or maybe, I mean, I'm going to do it that way for sure, but then possibly add an element of like maybe he gets tired over time. So if you keep managing to evade and deflect all of his attacks over time, he gets slower, and then that gives you a bigger window to be able to attack him, something like that. I don't know. I'm going to have to implement it and then practice, experiment with it and see how it works. But yeah, so a lot of brainstorming, a lot of script writing today, but then also I went ahead and before I decided to implement the actual boss fight and start playing with that, I had a list of a few things for quality of life features that I wanted to add. So I got around to doing that. And, it was such a nice day out today. I spent a lot of time outside, so that's why I spent most of my time writing scripts and just brainstorming stuff. So here we are in chapter select mode. And I will show you what the change is real quick here. This was a much requested feature. Well, at least a few people requested it anyway. Boom! So now, when you clear levels in the chapter select mode, you get your rating instantly, and that way you don't have to walk back to the start every time. Now you still have to walk back to the start in the regular story mode, because that is an intentional stylistic design. But I understand for those just going for the high score, not necessary. You can restart right away too, right? So, and if you want to leave the level, you can manually quit. I made it so it updates your thing right away if you got the high score, or you can run your way back and then it's just the same thing that used to happen. Okay? And then the second thing was I had this weird kind of setup where at the beginning of the game, when you go to play story mode, it asks for what difficulty you want to play on. And if you pick the normal or easy difficulty, it would make it so that when you dodge, it uses your direction of movement to determine where to dodge. But if you pick the hard difficulty, it uses where your mouse cursor is. And a friend of mine recently showed me his playthrough where he played on the normal difficulty, and he was hoping that it would go to where his cursor was, but instead it was based on his move direction since he was on the normal difficulty. And the reason I changed that was just because a while back I had a couple people who asked for that to be the case. They wanted it to be based on move direction. So that was an option I always had in the settings menu. But I figured like, okay, maybe for new and lower skilled players, it'll be easier if it's just based on their move direction since you don't have to be so accurate and quick with it. And so that's why I made it work differently depending on which difficulty you chose. And then it just stays like that forever unless you manually change it. But now that I think about it, it doesn't really make any sense, because if, let's say, you beat the game on normal and then you get better at it and now you want to try playing on the hard mode, now you are so used to the move direction being how you're going to dodge, but on the harder mode, you probably want that extra bit of precision in being able to select exactly where you'll dodge. And so it feels like, you know what, actually, it should probably be consistent rather than it switching depending on your difficulty or whatever. It's kind of weird and confusing. So to consolidate everything, I decided to just make it always by default you go to where you are aiming. So both your attack and your dodge are dependent on where you aim, and if you personally prefer the do it in the move direction, you can go into the settings menu and change it anyway. And that was pretty much it. So nothing super major, but it did end up taking me a little longer than expected because I noticed this tiny little bug where there's this, like, when the rating shows, there's this shader effect that happens on the outline of the rating number that you get. And I noticed that it was frozen when you would get it at the end of chapter select. And then I realized that the clear text that pops up, that's supposed to have the same animated outline, and it's also frozen there. And I realized that the shader was using scaled time. So at the end there, you have like the slow-mo effect that happens. So because of the slow-mo, the outline doesn't animate properly. And so I start digging through this like plugin I was using for the shader for that. I'm looking through the shader code, the source code, and trying to figure out, I guess I look through the code and I don't see anything for using unscaled time. So I'm like, okay, fuck, I guess I gotta implement it myself. So I start implementing it, and then like an hour later, I'm not able to figure something out. And an hour later, I go digging deeper and suddenly figure out, oh, that actually it already had support for this, but I had to add like some special script to my thing or something. So basically I ended up wasting like a whole extra hour or so of time. So this all ended up taking longer than I had hoped. Anyway, so not that interesting of a day, but nonetheless, very productive for me. I'm not going to record the footage for my promo campaign tonight. I'm going to leave that for tomorrow night. I've decided I would, I don't know, just being outside all day today and chilling out and walking around the city a lot. I felt like going out and doing something, so I'm going to go hit up a bar and have a drink instead. And I'll get back to work tomorrow. I'll start implementing and playing with the boss fight, get that footage done, and I guess I won't have the promo videos done tomorrow night, but should be able to get them done like Monday, Tuesday night. And I have a pretty good idea now for that longer form YouTube video. Oh, and also I was happy to see that my trailer jumped up to like 300 views. So looks like my channel is in fact not dead because of these videos. So thank God for that. Yeah, that's it. I don't think I have anything else to say. Oh, one other thing, actually. There is this website called Next Up Games that reached out to me asking me to sign up my game, and they do this thing. It seems to be a brand new website. I guess they're trying to grow, so they do a lot of promotional stuff, and tons of smaller indie games are on there, and I feel like every day of the week, I think, they showcase like 5 or so indie games if you sign up for this. And anyone who has an account on this website, which is meant to be, it seems like a social network for this. You can follow a game and developers can post devlogs and stuff. And if you have an account, you can follow or vote on which of the games on each day's showcase, I don't know, you're interested in most. And whoever on that day ends up with the highest votes gets a Q&A interview that they post on their Instagram, and most importantly of all, a small paid ad on Reddit for your game. And Six Samurai was the most highly voted game yesterday. Thank you. So, so they emailed me, and I get my little Q&A, and like I said, most importantly, a small paid ad by them. So that's pretty sweet. Even better is that I didn't even tell anyone to go and vote or anything like that. I did literally no promotion whatsoever because I was curious to see how many people organically are using this website. And also because I was looking at the other games, and no offense to them, but I was like, yeah, my game's clearly the best one here. So I actually didn't win by much though. It was a very close call. I only had like a couple votes more than the second game. So they got a lot more than I expected them to. So I don't know if maybe they promoted theirs more or whatever, but yeah, it was cool to see that without doing like literally any promotion whatsoever, I managed to get some stuff out of that and get a nice free ad, maybe bring in a few new players, a few new wish lists. And okay, I think that's all I got to say now. All right. Heading out. Peace.